Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. What an interesting week this has been. I'm back finally from the UK, so we should be getting things on a more consistent basis. I just came back this week, so it's a bit late this week, but I have already something coming down the pipes for you for the next 2 weeks. Might be some technical difficulties going into the next few weeks because our editor is going off to what was it, Manitoba, Montreal, someplace with an M.
Manitoba.
Yeah, he's going off. Anyway, so.
I have to take a second. Anyways, yes, I'll be gone in about a week and a half. So video quality, videos might be different. Nick himself might be the one recording and doing the whole video on its own.
Yeah, so we will see how that plays out. We're still in the kind of working stage. We have some ideas. Should get things resolved, but just letting you guys know in advance. So if things are a bit wonky, there you go. Yeah. So anyways, on to this week's video. Edgerunners. Who's seen Edgerunners? I've seen Edgerunners, the Cyberpunk one. Actually, I don't know if there's any other Edgerunners.
The show.
It's just Edgerunners.
The show. Clarification.
I don't know if there's any reality where I can say Edgerunners and somebody just be like, oh yeah, a knife's edge. And be like, yeah, kind of. I don't know. Like, how many references am I making here that I'm not aware of? But anyways. So Edgerunners 2, right? Cyberpunk Edgerunners. They announced that there's a Season 2, or Season 2. Let's be honest, it's Season 2. Also being made by Studio Trigger, actually. The studio that legendarily can't count past 2. So, that's first. Big for both Trigger and just in general, because if you've ever seen Edgerunners, which I would recommend, it's actually a very good show. I've seen it.
It is.
It's also interesting, though, because most of the cast... Spoiler alert. Okay, good. Spoiler for the ending of the show. We're good. Okay, good. They die by the end of it. Most of them, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, I won't mention who. But I will say that most of them do. So,
yeah.
How are we gonna make a season 2 if most of the cast are?
I'll say this. There's a good chance they might be... I forget what I wanted to reference, but like, there's a good chance they might go down the route of they'll go and kind of explore the world or explore things from different characters' point of view. Because keep in mind, Edgerunners did have a good number of characters in the whole show. It's just not all of them... like really had a whole lot of stuff going on. A good number of them are kind of just background relegated characters as well. So there is a chance that like they might go and kind of do a story with a bunch of other characters as well.
Oh yeah. Possibly with a reference to the original character. Maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't. Maybe. Who knows? But yeah. I mean, they have confirmed. I originally had an article from them themselves that got defunct, so I had to go to CD's personal website, which is also where that article came from. It's complicated, don't worry about it. Suffice to say, there are 2 articles in the description which talk about this. One from Edgerunner's own site, which is from Cyberpunk, which is from CD, and one from CD themselves, also referencing it, and also referencing more into detail about them going into Studio Trigger and da-da-da-da-da. So, 2 articles down there for your perusal if you want. One's more investor-y, I believe, than the other because it's come from CD, and I think that's more for investors, but whatever. So, that's a thing. I will say Cyberpunk Edgerunners has a lot going for it as an anime just in general. Like, I would feel very honored. I feel like I'm being a bit...
I feel honored.
Well, not honored, I would say. Let me walk that back a bit. I would feel very... very lucky to work on something like this. Purely because of the fact that it is a game, but it is also a board game, or it is also a I can't remember what the term is. TRPG, I think it is. Table role-playing game.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's the term for it.
Yeah. And as a result, right, compared to any other kind of work in the anime business you can do, it has probably the most material to draw from. And that kind of goes off what Justin said, right? There was a lot of stuff you can pull from that can make characters feel fleshed out, even if they're not the main focus, right? There's a lot of story you can draw from to make these characters work. I mean, look at things like, again, Kill a Kill. That came off a manga series, which sure, mangas have a lot of stuff related to them, but there's only so much a person can do within one series of manga, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a series, a franchise, you should say, that has spanned over literal decades. Like, this is Warhammer we're going into in terms of, like, the level of content you can draw from to some degree here. Probably not as much as Warhammer, perhaps, because Warhammer is just
there's not
broken.
as big of a dump in story that you could go and get yourself into, but to the same kind of degree and level in certain regards, yes.
Yeah, there is definitely way more to draw from than your average anime project, right?
Mm.
And so that allows you to draw from a lot of things to make the world feel alive, right? Like, for example, they don't have to think of, okay, what's Arasaka going into this? They already know what Arasaka is. What exactly are fixers going into this? They've already got fixers going into this. What are the gangs in Night City? How would they behave? They've already got all that drawn up for them, so they can make this make more sense and feel more alive, because there's just more source material to draw from that's just not purely plot related, right? Like, again, going into your average manga, most things are viewed from the perspective of the protagonist or those related to them if you're doing side stories, stuff like that. You only really get one view, right? But because this has gone on for so long, you got so many views to draw on. What do the corpos think of this? What do the gangers think of this? What do the people of Night City think of all this? Which I believe it's also still in Night City, fun fact. I believe in that CD Projekt article, they do mention that it's going to be another take on Night City. Which I didn't think they would at first, because I've heard that also the next Cyberpunk, the actual game, is in development, and I'm told that might come from a different city's perspective. I mean, Night City was supposed to be some futuristic version of LA, so New York, perhaps? I don't know. That'd be kind of funny, actually, considering the history of New York and its relation to, the founding of the U.S. and the whole business surrounding not Edgerunners, Phantom Liberty. And that whole business, that'd be kind of interesting.
There's a fair amount to gleam and dive into on that front.
Or they might just go a completely different country. I mean, to some degree, if memory serves, correct me if I'm wrong, Cyberpunk has the same shtick going on that Fallout has to some degree, where some countries just kind of stopped existing at this point.
Yeah, they had something happen to them, and they're just gone.
They're just gone. Or they're war zones at this point. I think the continent of Africa is just a complete hellhole at this point.
Like, in the case of Fallout, like, a good chunk of Europe is, like, just nuclear wasteland before the major nuclear war that set off the Fallout universe.
So, it got worse, effectively.
Yeah, it kind of got worse in some regards.
I think China still exists. Obviously Japan, because it's where Arasaka's based. So maybe they'll do something in Japan. That'd be kind of interesting to see kind of Arasaka on their own home turf. Granted, you'd have a lot less corporate diversity there, because they pretty much would run the roost. I think there's something of a shadow government at this point in terms of the lore where Arasaka stands. I know they definitely run the banking system. So, regardless. So that'd be kind of interesting. Again, no idea where it could go from there. But like I said, the fact that there's a new Edgerunners in development is both shocking, but hey, good news. I promised you guys good news at some point. Did I not?
Surprised, to be sure, but a pleasant one.
Yeah, again, I had no ideas what happened. I didn't think they would, honestly, because we were talking before the show, and it just felt like a good ending to just leave it on, Like, there's two types of ending, well, three, technically, endings you could do for an anime, right? And I've seen all three. I've seen ones that are just like, okay, there's room. Like, a lot of them go for option A, which is just, okay, that's a decent ending, or not a great ending, but hey, there's room for another season, so a bit of a cliffhanger ending. You've got option B, which is the one Cyberpunk kind of filled on. You don't see too many of those, I think, where it's like, okay, that's a good ending. This feels like this is a place to wrap it up. This is good. Or you get the demonic option C, 3. C or 3? I can't remember if I was using letters or numbers at this point. Good lord.
The third one.
The third one, which is just, that felt horrible. I've had that happen to you. And it is just unfortunate, because you're just like, wait, that's it? That feels like, it's not the cliffhanger, though I feel like I'm describing it like a cliffhanger, but you're sitting there being like...
It's the kind of
doesn't feel satisfying.
Like everyone loses kind of thing.
Not just everyone loses, right? Like, I remember an anime from back in the day I remember seeing. A couple years back. It was an old anime, though. It's called Midori Days. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. I'll spare you what happens to it, because it takes a bit of time to explain. But suffice to say that anime actually does end in a very at least in my case, unsatisfying. I remember seeing there and being like, okay, it's a happy ending, but this feels very unsatisfying. Suffice to say, the main girl loses all her memories of the person she's with, and there's no knowledge they've ever been together, so they have to start over. Again, it feels just like a mess. It's like all that build-up over the course of the series just went out the window. All the chemistry they could have drawn on for the ending, gone. So it just feels very unsatisfying, right? And that's kind of the demonic option 3. Thankfully, Cyberpunk went option B, but, usually that means there's
not much to work on if you're intending to build off of what you have existing.
Yeah. Like, you generally go with option 1, and that's generally the most common route, because most people obviously want a next season, and there's a lot more material to draw from. I mean, Overlord, I think, and Slime does this all the time, where it's like, okay, good ending, or bad ending, or whatever, but there's more to pull off of here.
Yeah. It's not,
but usually
fully
you don't
feature complete type.
Yeah, it's not like a whole, here's the series, it's all good, we're done. You don't get that, like, okay, that's nice. This feels like a good place to end it. You don't get that, because like I said, it just isn't that common, but we did, and yet they're still making a second one, so I don't know. This could be a weird case of, some people will start to argue in this case if it feels like it needs a second season. This is the part where people will start to debate that line of logic, because that does happen to some animes that have this happen, where you're sitting there going, okay, but does it really need a second season? I don't know. I'm just interested to see what they do with it just in general, because like I said, there's a lot they can draw from.
There is.
They could just completely go off of, again, technically they could make a second season, not just because, obviously they hold the place, so of course they can, but also because they can in terms of, like, logibility. Because, like I said before, back earlier in the show, there's a lot of stuff you can draw from in the world of Cyberpunk, right? Like I said, there's other countries, there's other factions, there's other nations. Hell, just Night City itself has so many sides to it that you just don't explore, right? Like, if anything, the whole business with David and Cyberpunk was kind of like the street kid route, He was not really a street kid, but he pretty much was, for all intents and purposes. If you've played the game and you know the playthrough routes, he pretty much was. But we haven't seen the corpo side. We haven't seen the nomad side, those who come from up high and kind of have to come down into the grit, or those who are just not even in the cities in general, who are just kind of working with them out of begrudging necessity.
Yes.
So there's all that angle we haven't explored yet, so they could always mess with those. But like I said, that's kind of where we are in terms of Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I mean, yeah, there's a season 2. No idea when. I don't remember if they announced a date. I don't think they did, though.
I don't think if they're announcing it now, odds are it won't be, like, best case a year, but I'm going to say, like, 2 years.
A year to 2 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe they might coincide with another game if it comes out, depending on how far along that is.
Yeah.
We'll see. As far as I know, they just said it's in production, so... Then again, considering how long the first show took to come out after the first game, comparatively, like, they announced the game and the show, like, around the same time. They're like, well, no, not the same time. They announced Cyberpunk way back when, but, like, when they really started ramping up production and, like, marketing for Cyberpunk, they're also like, hey, we're also doing an anime with Trigger. And that took a while to get out, to the point where the game was already out, got a bad review, and was already on the road to recovery or hell, depending on how you look at it at the time, by the time the anime came out. So, all bets are off, is all I'm going to say. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, good news, and yeah, that's pretty much it for this week, unless you want to add anything on the end there, Justin.
Nope.
All right, then. We'll just wrap this up and let you all go, since we're at 14 minutes at the point. All right, then. Have a good day. Have a good week. See you all next week. Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.
Have a good one.